All right, so for the sake of simplicity, I've reconfigured this a little bit so it's not like our normal Sunday, so we don't have to be swapping pages around or anything. So all the drums are here, and all the instruments are here, and the vocals, so we don't have to worry about swapping back and forth. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is, for a typical sound check, this is what I'll do, but I spend like maybe 5-10 minutes doing it instead of like an hour. And my idea is to get a ballpark starting point. We're going to spend a lot more time on individual channels here to kind of listen to things and kind of explain some things. But usually this process for a sound check takes 5-10 minutes. And then as the band plays and goes through their songs, whatever, then I'll go back and I'll make adjustments to it. Okay? So first thing I want to tell you is that this first channel, I have the click on here for no reason other than just that's here. Kick, 2 snare mics, 2 toms, overheads, all the instrumentation, so bass, keys, acoustic, electric, and 3 vocal mics, which I think there's only 2 on this track for some reason. But, so all these are here. I also have 3 DCAs set up to control all these over here. I have a vocal mix, a drum mix, and a instrumentation mix. So if I were to press play here, if I turn this up, you're not going to hear the kick drum until I turn this up. And my computer's doing that.
It was working earlier, wasn't it?
It was working earlier. It was working yesterday for like 2 hours. Let me just. Hopefully this works. If it doesn't work, I'll have to get the other computer. So, doesn't matter what you start with. I always start with my drums just because they give me kind of like a foundation, and I usually end with my vocals because my vocals are the last point. I want to make sure they sit on top of everything. However you want to do it's fine with me. Whatever you want. I usually go drums, instruments, vocals, but again, it's all subjective. I usually do just because I want to make sure that my vocals are louder than everything else. And sometimes if you do your vocals first and then do your band, sometimes you mix your band louder than your vocals are. So at least when I do the band first, it gives me an idea of how loud the room is, and then I can put the vocals on top of that. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the kick drum. And I'm just going to spend some time here listening to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the kick drum, and we're going to turn up the gain to get to the volume that we want. So it's already at a decent sound-wise, but I'm going to use the EQ to kind of show you some things we're going to take out of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my EQ here. So this is my EQ. I'm going to bring this back up. I'm going to kind of take some of the low-end rumble out of it. And this is without that. You kind of hear a little bit more of the rumble in it. You hear how it kind of cleaned up a little bit. So then I'm going to take one of my filters here. Again, I've got a gain knob, a frequency knob, and a Q knob. So I'm going to take my gain knob on one of my mid frequencies. I'm just going to turn it up. If you're hearing a bunch of nasty stuff now, right? And I'm just going to use this frequency knob to find what I'm listening for. That right there sounds pretty bad. That doesn't sound too bad for a kick drum, but that sounds kind of off to me. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this down. Kind of like that. You can be dramatic with it if you want, but don't need to. Then I'm going to take this other one. I'm going to do the same thing higher up. I'm basically listening for things that I don't like. That doesn't sound great. That right there is where the beater's hitting the kick drum, so we want to keep that, so we don't want to touch that. And all that stuff is stuff that the kick drum's just picking up just because it's picking it up. So that right there kind of sounds bad. So I'm just going to turn it off again. All right, so now what I do is I turn the EQ on and off to hear the difference. So this is with the EQ, this is without. You hear you kind of more of like a slap effect to it. Back on. So it just kind of cleans it up a little bit. And notice all I've done is cut. I boosted it to find what I was listening for, but then I just cut it. I think it is Calvin. It sounds too accurate to be anybody else. Now in a typical sound check, I'll go through each drum individually. Ideally, you want to get a good mixture of overheads next because they capture the entire kit, but I'm just going to do what I would normally do. So we're going to listen to the snare next. So this is the top snare. I'm going to bring it up to volume. I've got a little bit of the kick drum still in there just so you can hear it. But if you notice, as we turn it up, you're getting a lot of hi-hat, a lot of cymbal bleed. It sounds like you're hitting a wooden box, doesn't it? So we're going to take this low cut, do the same thing. We're going to take out some of that low-end rumble. The distortion's coming back. I hate Logic. All right, I'm gonna have to bring the other computer down here. All right, we're back.
All right, you got your basic backbeat.
Yeah, so hopefully this thing doesn't cut out of me either. But so, where were we? Oh yeah, we're talking about snare drums. So we're gonna roll up this low cut a little bit, but not a whole lot because we like a little bit of low end on our snare, not rumble though. So basically you can see I'm just kind of rolling it up till it gets to the point where you see it kind of crossing over the meter here. Now we're just talking about EQ for now. We're going to go back and talk about gates and compression later. So this is assuming that we have just EQ at our disposal on most boards. Most boards don't have gates and compressors. Digital boards do, but all right, so again, it sounds like there's a little bit of a box. It sounds like you're hitting a box. So we're just gonna just roll it way up. Listen for you, listen. That doesn't sound too good. So we're gonna start there for right now. That right there sounds a lot better already. But where it's kind of low now, and I'm going to crank up the gain a little bit more. All right. Now, with the snare drum, we like to hear a lot of the crack, which is usually like your upper end. So we're just going to take this high filter, which on an analog board is fixed. You can't adjust the frequency, but we can hear, so we're going to. Just going to. So that right there sounds like an okay snare drum to start off with. It's nice and meaty. It's not too tinny. There's probably still room to mess with it, but we're just gonna go with that for now. So here's what the snare and kick drum sound like together. So that's a good starting point for a snare drum. I have a snare bottom mic, which is more of the rattle, so I'm going to mix that in real quick. You hear the rattleness? The rattleness, that's not a word, rattle. Now the thing about snare bottom mics is you want to hear the rattle, but you don't want it to be like overbearing. You just want to hear enough to hear that there's actual snare wires, right? Because if you go too much, then it's going to sound like this. And that doesn't sound like it.
Mic's on the same source, that's a phase issue.
It is. So we have one on the top, one on the bottom. Now, I'm not sure if when I capture this, it captured the phase invert already, but I'm going to show you what you would do to check for that. But right now, I'm just basically going to EQ it so it sounds decent, and then we're going to worry about blending the two together so it sounds okay. So again, you're going to use your low cut and turn it on. Just get some of that low rumble out of it. So hear a little bit of that low end go away. We're going to do the same thing we did earlier. Just turn up our gain. You're just looking for what sounds bad. So that's pretty low already, and it doesn't sound too good. So what I may do is I may just roll up this low end a little bit, get rid of that there so I don't have to use one of these. That doesn't sound good. Again, you don't have to be overly dramatic with your cut. You just want to be really big on when you're finding it so you can hear what you're listening for. But you don't have to take too much of it out. So then I'm going to put a little bit of that high end where the rattle is. So there's the rattle. So then both mics together. You hear a little bit of the rattle still? So what you would do to check your phase on this, you have both mics on, and you just hit your phase invert. You hear I got a little fuller? You don't hear the rattles quite as much? And now you hear the rattles a little bit more with the phase swapped. It's not much, but you can tell a difference. So that's where you have some of that crossing going on, and you want to fix that using the phasing, because you have a top and a bottom pointing at the same source, just going in opposite directions. So that's pretty good for a snare right now. Let me see if I can find the toms real quick on this. Tom, where are you, toms? All right, here we go. Hang on, that's the, it's just the floor tom. Where's the top toms? Now, there might not be a good top tom on this one.
Chris, in your setup up here, the red drum is the tom. That one.
Yes, this is a tom.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So your snare mic is the one that's usually between their legs that they're playing like this. The kick is the one they're using the floor. Then anything else is a tom mic.
Okay.
Or a tom drum.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right, so here's a floor tom for you. So you hear the nice ringing going on there. So with the floor tom, you don't need too much with it. You might want to take a little bit of the low end rumble out of it, and maybe a little bit of the mids, but that's usually about all you have to do with a floor tom. So just basically cleaning up a little bit so it's not quite as ringy. So just a little bit of a low cut here. if you're using an analog board where you don't have control over where your low cut is, I'd say just leave the low cut off. Then we're just going to take our mid here. So that right there doesn't sound great. So right about there sounds about the worst to me. Then we're just gonna, so just with and without. This is with EQ, without. So you have a little bit more of a rumble to it, and this turn the low cut and the EQ back on. So you still have a lot of the ring, but it's not quite as deep. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So we're gonna go with that for now, and I don't think there's much of a high tom on this track. I didn't see one on there, so we're just going to ignore it for now. But then I'm going to turn on the chorus again, and we're going to listen to the entire drums together and mix in the overheads. So we're going to just take this chorus track again. So that's the floor tom, and you're hearing the ride cymbal on the floor tom. So we'll look at that later too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the kick drum, and here's the overhead mics. So this is just the overhead mics. So it sounds kind of thrashy, right? So we want to fix that a little bit. So we're going to take this low cut, we're going to roll it up so we don't have any of that low end again. We're going to take this low mid here, turn it up. So probably about there. Give it just a little bit of high end on it. And then we start adding things back in. There's 7 on this one. 8 if you have a double kick or an extra floor tom.
How many did guitars get?
1. Everything gets 1 except for drums.
How'd you tell that the group over there?
Because this is controlling all these channels here.
Okay.
This is a DCA.
That's a DCA.
Yeah, it's controlling all these channels here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you hold on this particular board, if you hold down the select button on the DCA, it'll show you which over here it's using. So all of those are part of that DCA. And if you want to take it off, like if you want to take the click track off, which I don't have the click track right now, so you just select it while you hold it down.
Takes that one off.
Mm-hmm. That's how you do a DCA.
Okay.
For those of you who've never heard a click track before,
That's my favorite.
see, we should have that in for the PA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
People don't know. Oh, trust me, I can hear it usually.
Yeah, we can usually hear it coming out of people's ears.
I don't understand.
You don't understand at all. All right, so
I moved it all the way over here.
that's a really basic drum mix that took us, 10, 15 minutes to get to. Again, this is something that usually takes less than 5 just to get to a starting point. But we're showing people how to do this at the same time. A lot of times this is already set for us, so it's just fine tuning. This is completely from scratch. So next thing we need to do is listen to our instruments, our bass, keyboards, guitars. So this is on this DCA here. So I'm going to have just a little bit of the drums in, just so we have our reference. But here's our instrument channels. And we're going to start off with our bass. And we're going to bring it up to volume.
More. We all know I like
Yeah. So the thing about direct insert instruments is typically they sound pretty good just straight out of the gate. The only time I use EQ is to kind of, if someone's plucking it really hard or it just has a little, it just doesn't sound quite as smooth, I'll use EQ to kind of cut out a little bit of the EQ frequencies for that. So I normally take a little bit of a low cut on the bass just because I don't like so much bass in the subs, but I still like to hear a little bit of it. So usually something about right there is where I'll start with the bass. And then but that's just rolling the EQ frequency over. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably make this kind of wide and just kind of, just a little bit, just so I have a little bit more low end than I do anything else in the bass. And then the best way to do this is to kind of listen to it with the kick drum. So I'm just going to turn up the snare, So something about like that would be okay for a bass to a drum. I like to have a little more kick in mine. I like to have it like that.
There you go.
So a little more kick in there. So that right there is where you can actually do this.
So like when you go to record this scene or this song, when you record it, when you hit this song, all of those are going to go to that level.
Mm-hmm. If you recorded it, yeah, but typically we don't record per song like that. We record entire,
Like the whole thing.
the whole, whatever the band's playing that Sunday. So that way we have all of our EQ and all of our compression and stuff all set.
You would adjust it per song if you know already, and say you have notes or something like this song requires a little bit more low end, bring that up just a hair. Or
Yeah, it's all mental notes, and you just adjust the faders as you go.
how can you keep up with mental notes when you're
I was gonna
writing?
say, if you're not that smart, you actually write it down like that.
Yeah, you can write it down. So that's your bass. Next thing I'm going to do is add in some keys, which on this one, it's mostly just sustained notes. Now the thing about keyboards is if you have a bass guitar, you don't need a whole lot of low end with a keyboard because they kind of clash with each other a little bit. So I'll usually turn on my low cut a little bit. And huh?
Never trying to decide who's playing piano.
I think it's Charlene. But this makes me think it's Chris.
So, and then without the low cut. So there's not a whole lot of difference there because she's just playing single notes. But you hear the low and kick in there. And with keyboards, I kind of leave them alone. Every once in a while, I'll take a little bit out, but not often. Keyboards are usually designed to be pretty good as they are. Again, it's a direct input instrument, so it's usually okay. Now the thing about acoustic guitars, even though they're direct insert, there's usually a microphone inside of it that's giving it it's not all electronic, so there is some sort of an active pickup in it. So we will have to mess with the EQ here. So this. So So the first thing that I noticed with this is that it's very attack heavy. There's not a whole lot of warmth to it. So what I would do is I'd actually EQ a lot of the attack section out a little bit so I can get a little more body of the guitar. So what I did here is I added a little bit of a low shelf. So I switched over to a shelf using this button here. So if I took the low cut off, you can see where I've boosted it all the way across. And I might add in a little bit more of the high end for the string noise. And I might take this a little this way. Now, as far as an acoustic guitar by itself sounds, it's not a great sounding acoustic guitar. But once you start adding in your bass and your keyboards, yeah, so that way you have your keyboards in one spot on the song, your guitar in another spot, and then your bass in another spot. So that way you have this spectrum, and you're just picking and choosing where you hear the instrument, right? So then you have your electric guitar, which this guitar is just kind of driving the entire time. It's out of tune. So the thing about, again, it's mic'd pretty well. I can't remember if this is an actual going through my pod or if it's an amp.
That's a pod.
Okay, well, it sounds pretty good either way, so I'm not going to do a whole lot with it. I'm going to take a little bit of the that crunch area around 2 to 4K out, just kind of deaden it a little bit. So what I'll do is take this. Hear how it sounds really nasty now? Right there. It's a little too much. And then to compensate for that, I'm going to put a little bit of high end back in there. So that's where you can like boost a little bit back into it. So everything together sounds like this. So that's a quick band check. So again, not a whole lot of EQ, but just a little bit makes it sound all difference in the world. So I'm going to turn those back on. I'm going to turn all the EQ off so you can hear a difference. I'm going to turn it all back on. This is with no EQ. It doesn't sound clean at all. It sounds very just, So when you start adding EQ back, So it kind of cleans it up a whole lot.
Do you have MD in there?
Not right now, no. I didn't patch it. Don't worry about it.
We got to figure out who it is.
Who cares?
We do.
So, and then you have your vocals, obviously. So again, this is just from an EQ standpoint. So this is your vocal.
It's broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken.
Now, I want you to listen because you're hearing a lot of the PA system in his mic.
Victory, he's alive, alive.
You hear that, the drums behind him and everything?
He's alive and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive.
So the best way to do a vocal mic is to take your low cut and roll it up until you start to hear it affect his voice, and then back it off so it doesn't affect it anymore. So
He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me.
So right there,
Sing it out, shout it
then
out
back it
for
back down.
victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free.
yeah, it still sounds a little muddy, but we can fix that. So we're going to take our low here, our low right here, and we're going to switch it over from a parametric EQ to a shelf.
Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory.
So it kind of takes a little bit of that low end out of it.
Alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me.
So right about
Shout it out for victory.
anytime you're having trouble like hearing what the person's saying, usually about 1 to 3K for a male vocalist, and then about 3 to 5K for a female vocalist, you can boost a little bit there, and you can start to hear their words a little bit clearer. That's just typically where it falls. So with his, I'm going to give it a little bit of a boost, just enough to kind of clear it up a little bit, because it almost sounds like his words are almost slurring just a hair. Yeah.
Free, every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive,
All right.
alive and from. He's alive.
EQ? None.
Every chain he is broken off of me.
See how it gets like really like bassy?
Shout it out for victory. He's alive.
It just kind of cuts through a little bit better.
Alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory.
So then we have our background vocalist.
He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me.
And you hear a lot more of the PA in her mic because she's probably holding the mic further away. So we're going to roll out a lot of the low end.
I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out,
Sounds
shout it out for victory.
already better.
He's alive.
We're going to take a little bit of that mid-range out a little bit.
I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive. We're alive and free.
Now, do
He's
we have a
alive,
recording
he's
of my favorite
alive,
artist
and
now?
I'm free.
Adjust
Every
that.
chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive.
Say what?
Do we have a recording of my favorite artist to see how we can fix that?
No. Sorry. But again, not a whole lot of EQ. When you're in a live situation, though, in a live room, you might have to do a whole lot more because you're actually hearing them on stage in addition to the PA system. Plus, we're using these speakers and not those speakers. So The speakers are different.
Once you hear the actual song, the room's full.
Yeah, and yes.
Well, and you're hearing whatever you're actually hearing the real voice too.
Yeah, when you're hearing the real voice, basically every time that they go through it, it changes. Quit laughing at me. What are you laughing at me for? All right, so that's a basic, just EQ only mix. Like if this was an analog board out at Mount Carmel, I'd be happy with that. Since this is digital, we do have access to compressors and gates. We're gonna go over what everything sounds like using those things. So we're just gonna turn on the kick for right now. Now if you notice, you hear a lot of the cymbal behind it, right? So we're gonna use this gate here. I'm gonna turn it on. If you look at this thing bounced up and down, that's the cymbal, that little blue line, that is what the gate's picking up. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take this, we're just gonna roll it up. And I'm gonna turn this release off. Oh, whoops, I'm on the wrong channel. Huh?
Yeah, you shouldn't be hearing it right now.
Yeah, now here we go.
There we go.
So, do you see that red line come down? That's because we have this 900 millisecond release on it. So we're gonna make that really short. And we're gonna take this hold off because we don't want that effect to last that long. So, we're gonna start backing it down. That's where it's actually triggering the gate, but if you notice, it's not staying open long enough to hear anything. Plus, we're missing a couple hits. So I'm going to back it down even more. And then slow this down a bit. And then if you turn the gate off, so you kill a lot of that cymbal noise right there. So that's how you use a gate effectively. And then if we wanted to do it even more, we can use a compressor. So I'm going to turn the gate off for a second so I can listen to the compressor at full volume. So if we come over here to compressor, what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing it down, this little line here. We're just going to start bringing this threshold down. So if you listen, it's already starting to sound a little bit not as loud. So with the compressor off, you have a little more attack to it. But now we're kind of quieting it a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this attack, which is right here, I'm going to turn it all the way open to about 30 or 40 so the initial hit of the kick drum comes through. So you actually hear the hit and it quiets down. So I'm going to actually make this a little bit quieter now. This is overly done just so you can see what's going on. But then I can use this gain back. See, now I have the kick drum's really punchy. It's probably too punchy. But that's how you can use this gain knob to get back to where you were. And you can use this red line here to see where you are. So right now it's coming all the way down to about -8, -10. So I'm at about 8.5 makeup gain to get back to that same volume. And then without the compressor, you have a little punch behind it. So this is probably 2 done. So we're gonna back it back down. Usually about 2 to 3 is about as much as I go on a kick. So compressor, None. It's still there and it still sounds pretty good, but it just doesn't have quite as much behind it. And you can really notice it once I turn up the main volume. It just hits harder versus that, which it still hits, but just not quite as hard. Okay, so that's how a compressor works there. I'm going to do the same thing with the snares. The snare top, I'm going to do the exact same way. I'm going to make it really nice and punchy so you hear the attack of the snare, but I'm going to try and mute as much of the rest of the stuff as I can. Turn it on. You hear it really compressed now? So I'm going to increase the attack on it a little bit. So I'm going to go from 10 to about 30, 50. It's almost cutting off the attack, so I'm gonna make the release even longer. And I gave it some gain to get back up to that volume. Without, still there, still sounds good. But I'm just adding a little bit of compression to give it a little punch. A little more slap to it. And then we can kind of do the same thing with all the other drums. For now, I'm just going to, I'm going to come back to this floor tom so I don't have to change my setting over there. But the floor tom, you actually do the opposite because you want to ring a little bit more. This one already sounds pretty good to begin with, but I think it can use a little bit more based on what we heard earlier. So we're going to come back to that. So here we're going to go over to the bass guitar now, and I'm going to bring the drums down. So here's the bass. If you notice, you hear them plucking a little bit, and you hear the pluck. So what we want to do is we want to take some of that pluck out so it's just nice and constant, right? So we're going to turn this compressor back on, and we're looking at this blue line. It's just bouncing up and down. We're basically going to try and just keep it and we're going to turn the attack pretty quick so we don't want that pluck to come through. And then we want to make up our gain here. So this has come down to about 6, so we want to give it about 6 decibels of gain here. Compared to no compression, it's much punchier, which if you're going for that, that's great. With a full band though, I'm not sure if you want that. So with the compressor, it's a little more, it's just more foundational than anything. Yeah. Yeah, so if you're selected here, all these settings are stored into basically a file that's just for this channel.
Okay, so you select at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you select it here, so if I select over here, I didn't set compressor on the overheads. Which, I mean, I compress and gate every drum that I have, every mic that I have, but it took me a while to get there. So unless you want to stick around for a little while and go through it a whole lot, I was going to kind of omit it. We kind of have yeah. Keys I usually don't gate, don't compress. The only other instrument that I usually compress would be an acoustic guitar, just to get a lot of the bounce out of the picking. You hear them? So I'm going to select it right here. Turn on the compressor. And you can see the blue line jump every time he strums really hard. So right there, it's you don't have as much of the big huge attack. And then I'm just going to make up the gain here. That's all I'm going to do. Without. A little more. But now you notice that low end kind of matches it a little bit. A little more.
Every chain is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and he's alive, and I'm free.
A little loud.
Every chain is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory.
Yeah, I'm going to. But that kind of gives you an idea of instrumentation, right? I'm getting to the voices.
Victory, he's alive, alive and he's alive, and I'm free.
So if you look at the main vocal here, this blue line's pretty loud.
He's alive,
So
he's alive, and I'm free. Every chain.
the thing about vocals is that even though I compress them, I change my ratios around, and the knee, which is how hard it breaks into the compressor, whether it's like straight away or if it more rounds it out, so it, you know, it gets to that ratio instead of just suddenly there. I usually go about 3-0 on a 3-to-1 compressor. So for every 3 decibels they get louder, they only get 1 in the house system, which right now you can see he's just kind of almost there. If I turn this back on.
I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me.
So only like,
Sing it out, shout it
yeah,
out for
yeah,
victory.
when he's like getting
He's alive,
the bigger notes in there,
alive
it's a little more rounded off.
He's alive and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive.
And the other thing is that I usually turn my attack off, so it's right away. I don't want to hear anything come through before the compressor comes on. So that way you're not having like a pop in there. So that's basically how I would compress a vocal, just like that too. Now this vocal is really hot compared to where we normally are. But then again, I'm way down here in my volume. And we're really close to the speakers, so I didn't want to kill everybody. But usually we're somewhere like down in here for the vocals, a little bit lower than that. So we usually have about 5 or 10 decibels of room that we normally would have that we don't have here today. So questions on how you use compressors and gates? Okay.
Is there a test later?
No. No test later. Real quickly, it's the last thing I want to show everybody is how we use effects. So on this other channel here, I've got instrument reverb, drums reverb, vocal delays, and vocal reverb. I'm going to turn off the vocal delay and the vocal reverb for now. And I'm actually going to bring the vocals down just a little bit so I don't kill myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the vocals to it. So the way you do it is you're adding a subgroup, and you're adding channels into that subgroup. So right now we've got all these lights here, but on this vocal delay and vocal reverb, we have nothing coming into it because I have nothing assigned to it. So to do that with this board, you hit select, so for reverb, and then you hit sends on fader. What that does is it turns this into what you can send to there. So if I hit this, there's everything that I'm sending to it right now. So if you notice, I've got all the drums and everything muted, the vocals are unmuted. So what I can do now is I can actually add the vocal to it. Now it's not going to work while the DCA is off. So if I unmute those.
He is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for.
Hang on, it's not working right. This happened to me last time. I had to change something. Well, I don't have anything selected there.
He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me.
All right, so now you can see it here.
Shout it out for victory. He's alive, and from. He's alive, and I'm.
And I'm going to do the same thing with the delays.
Chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it.
You hear the delay kick in?
Victory. He's alive, and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, and from. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory.
Do you hear the reverb there? I was trying to get to the point where I could just turn it off so you can hear the reverb. I don't have the ability to actually solo something into these speakers right now because we're using just the main left, right outs. I should have thought of that earlier. But so you can hear the reverb that's on there. So it adds just a little bit of like natural reverb to it. What I normally do with a delay is I'll turn it on and off. So this is my mute for my delay. So if I
sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, and from.
Now turn it off.
He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain he is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, and free. Alive and
You hear a little bit?
free. Alive and free.
Wait, we gotta figure out who's playing.
They don't want to.
So, but you heard the delay there a little bit. So I'm basically just turning it on the last note of everything he's saying. And that's, on a fast song like this, I normally wouldn't use it. But for quieter songs where there's like kind of like this break and there's nothing going on other than just like a little bit of band stuff going on behind it, I'll throw it in there just to kind of add a little something out here. But again, that's not something that we have to do. It's just something I like to do. Chelsea doesn't like the delay.
I like it. You don't like it?
She doesn't like the delay. She says, it doesn't sound good.
The delay is the thing that brings out at the end.
What did I say that it sounded good?
So just to give you an idea,
I don't remember it sounding
Alive and
did you hear it?
There's a point in time when I like it, but not for all.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Is
just
that when
always
you
feel
guys are
like
hitting
it's
that button?
Yeah, that's when we're turning it on and off.
during the response, like it's just so much.
Well, yeah, the thing about the response is that we have to turn it down, which we don't do. And we need to, yeah, we can't do it on like everything.
I don't mind it when it's there, if it's just like
Yeah.
ambient and subtle.
Do you hear it?
Oh, yeah,
She plays with ambient mics. She's one of the few who do.
just a little bit.
All right.
All the way.
So I'm going to start this from the top and just kind of mix in all the faders just to get an accurate level of where things should be. So, James, when I tell you to, go ahead and hit the space bar. So, go ahead. So I kind of start right here. I'm going to crank the volume a little bit if that's okay. You hear the people clapping?
Come on, let's sing this out. We will dance upon the chains that fall. Fall from love, redeemed and ransomed soul.
So
We will dance, we will sing, we will.
So as the song's going on, you'll notice I'm going to be playing with these faders the entire time because the guitars will come in, the guitars will come out, the vocal will be too loud, it'll be too quiet. So this is basically how you would mix in a live setting.
To the promise that surrounds, not by strength and not by sight, but by the Spirit of the living Christ. Oh, our heart, we will praise Him. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain He has broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and free. Alive and free. Alive and free. Alive and free.
So you let your guitar warm up a little bit,
We will sing a song of
back out.
song of hope, a song of His great work. Jesus lives, our redemption has been found. Oh, our heart, with all our heart, we will praise Him. He's alive, and I'm free. Every chain He is broken off of me. Sing it out, shout it out for victory. He's alive, alive and free. Alive and free.
So the guitar.
Alive and free. Alive and free. My sin for His mercy, my shame for His grace, my pain.
Yeah, it's not me. I always play that lead.
We don't know who's playing like guitar.
I think it's Joel.
I think it's Joel.
I think it's Joel.
It might be Joel. I don't know. I do know that Cowan is playing this, is singing this third line here. He's the third vocal.
Yeah.
Who is it?
This Zach Cowan was the third vocal.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. No, I remember that week. Never mind.
Put that one in?
I didn't do that.
No, it's like a Casio lead that's in the middle of it.
So
Speaking of that count,
that's kind of the basics of it. Took almost 45 minutes, but yeah, that's how we get to where we're at, usually. Questions? Would you like to try a few things yourselves?
It's all guitars.
The guitar is not as thick and distorted as I would want it to be. I want more guitars. More guitars.
2 guitars every week,
3.
okay.
at least 2.
Yeah. So, if there's no other questions, that kind of wraps up for today. Hopefully y'all got some use out of it. I hope.